we are going to kick it off with intros. It's so great to see everyone here. And most of y'all are familiar with each other, but it's always good to have reminders. Oh, we got Denise coming in.
Yep.
So, welcome to our Friday Zoom here. And I'm Sylvie, back at the Friday Zooms now, which feels great. I think this is my second that I've made it. No, might be my first after my leave. So good to see your faces. Always a good way to start off a Friday. And let's see, Chantal, I'll start with you. And I think, give your name and either your kind of role in your community or with your downtown program and your location.
Hi, I'm Chantal. I'm in Monson. I'm the director of Monson Arts, and I am the secretary of Monson Collaborative, our downtown community, our downtown organization, which is all volunteer.
Awesome. And Terry Ann.
Morning, I'm Terry Ann Holden with the Maine Office of Community Development with the CDBG program and with Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund.
Thanks, Terry Ann.
She serves on the MDC Advisory Council in a role that we are forever grateful.
And Nancy.
I am Nancy Katz. I'm with the Town of Holton. I'm the Community Development Director. Good to see you all.
And Ross.
Good morning, everybody. Ross Cunningham, Town of Lisbon Economic and Community Development Director and Board Member for Discover Lisbon.
And Amanda, our one and only right now.
For once, yeah. Amanda Cunningham, Executive Director of Our Town Belfast.
And Brad.
Brad Miller, Director of Programs and Services for Maine Preservation across the state.
Awesome. And Melissa.
Melissa Lindley, Economic Development Director for City of Gardner, Board Member of Gardner Main Street, and former Director of Gardner Main Street.
Abby.
Hi, Abby Leibowitz, Assistant Director of Heart of Biddeford.
Love having that title because you guys, it's a big deal for Biddeford. Abby, how many months have you been there in that role?
Actually, it was just my 1 year anniversary a couple of days ago. Yeah,
that's what I thought. So
a full year.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cara.
Cara Romano, Director of Heart of Ellsworth. We're an affiliate community of the Maine Downtown Center, and I'm hailing this morning from Bar Harbor.
Nice. And Patrick.
Good morning. I am Patrick Moore, Director of Entrepreneurship at Main Street Skowhegan.
And Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Rideout. I'm the Certified Local Government Coordinator for Maine Historic Preservation Commission, and I also serve on the Main Street Advisory Council at MDC.
Thanks. Denise.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Denise Barker, the Economic Director here in Calais, Maine, Baileyville, and Calais.
And Tamara, if you're able to unmute. If you're just listening for now, that's okay too. Okay, we'll let Tamara get settled in. And Anne, I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. We have a lot of different little things on our agenda this morning. We have Megan and Brad who are going to dive in with me for like 15 or 20 minutes on our new preservation toolkit. I'm not going to go through it in detail. I think we're just going to have a conversation a little bit about accreditation standards, which only applies to the main streets, but I think pieces of it apply to the affiliates. So we'll have that conversation. And then we're going to hear from Patrick Moore about a leadership training that he did. And then we have some other like quick things, Sylvie and I, and then we'll just have open discussion for things that you might have going on. Megan, I know you have a timeline of another meeting you have to transition to, so we're going to start with toolkit, which will hopefully make it work for your schedule. Sylvie, chime in if you need to, because, you know, I feel like it's a Friday. It's really hot and humid again, and I'm not thinking totally clearly.
Absolutely. Anne's gonna open up the toolkit here and share it, and I will also put a link. It's housed on our page on our website, on the MDC page, right under the map that kind of is featured with some of the reinvestment statistics. There's a little PDF of it. So I'll put a couple links in the chat. One for that web page you can always get it from, and then one that goes directly to the toolkit.
Okay, great. Sorry, let's get this bigger for you. Okay, so I'm not starting with the toolkit. I'm going to start with the accreditation standards. You know, all of our affiliate programs someday may decide that they want to seek accreditation, the process that Ellsworth is in the middle of right now, and becoming a nationally accredited Main Street. So shout out to Ellsworth who's working through this. And, you know, it's something to strive for whether you are a Main Street or not. So there are 6 indicators, and one of them is historic preservation. As you can see, sorry, 6 standards. Standard 5, preservation-based economic development. And you guys get scored on this stuff every year, and you know, to be accredited. And we in Maine, our advisory council, our preservation content experts on our advisory council, were like, we can do better in giving our communities examples of what they can do to meet the accreditation standard, but in general, just think about preservation in your community. Every one of you are in a program, whether you're an affiliate or a municipal program or a Main Street, you're in a program that's over 40 years old. It was founded in the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and it is about preservation-based economic development. Like, you all have core historic downtowns, right? You have those areas which have a density of historic buildings, mostly commercial, with, you know, usually residential right outside. And that's kind of part of what you do. And it doesn't have to be, what I'm trying to say is there's a range of what you can do. And that's what I think the toolkit does really well at, is giving you the range of easy things that Denise Callis could think about doing. And, you know, Abby, what Biddeford can do, or Gardner, Melissa and Tamara. So, you know, a range of options. So this is the standard 5, as I said, and there are 3 indicators. And again, this is dense, and I'm not going to do this on Zoom because that's painful, but I am going to tell you what the 3 indicators are: preservation ethics and education on historic and cultural assets, standards and best practices for place-based, people-focused design, and promotion of historic, heritage, and cultural assets. So I'm going to stop sharing that. So, and the toolkit, I'm going to also share, and then I'm going to talk to our wonderful guests, Brad and Megan, who are here to kind of add a little more information to what I'm sharing with you. So let me share this next document. Is that big enough, Sylvie, or does it need to be bigger?
Looks good to me.
Okay. All right. So this toolkit was developed by a number of advisory council members and MDC staff, really kind of building out, as I said, the standard and the indicators a little more robustly to give you ideas of things you can do in your community. It is many pages. But I'm going to just go to page 15 really quickly. Hold on, not 15. Just to give you an idea of how it works. Examples demonstrating focus area 2, indicator 1. You know, these are things that you can do in your communities to meet this standard. Advocate for threatened historic properties. Let's see. Educate the business and property owners. I think a number of you do that. If a property owner comes into an economic development office in a community or goes to the Main Street office, I think you're sharing information saying, oh, did you know that Maine has both state and federal historic preservation tax credits available to you if your building is, you know, listed or eligible for the National Register, things like that. So this is what the toolkit does. It builds out these examples. We talk about Jane's Walk as a great thing that our communities do and can do as a promoting place and historic parts of your downtown. Not all Jane's Walks are preservation based, but they can be. So that's the toolkit, and I don't want to spend like details of it. We can refer back to it, but I think Sylvie put it in the chat. You've all gotten it through our newsletter and things like that. But I thought it would be helpful for everybody on the phone to be reminded or introduced to Brad and Megan. And I'm just going to throw it out and say, Brad, will you go first and just tell everybody how Maine preservation works with communities and works with maybe Main Streets, and you know, a little bit about kind of what you do or what Maine preservation does with these guys that could be helpful.
Sure, yeah, I'll do my best to distill it all down.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're a statewide historic preservation nonprofit. So I like to tell folks that we help anybody who owns or stewards a historic old building, or in this case is involved with an organization or a local government that's, you know, supporting economic development and you know, the sense of place in your community. And so we do that in a kind of myriad of ways, including, you know, on-site hands-on technical assistance with historic properties. So if you have a historic homeowner or someone who owns a commercial building downtown, we're happy to have an initial call and come out on site and answer questions about repointing the masonry or talking about how to restore windows. And so that's a very kind of specific assistance. You know, we also, a lot of my work specifically is working with nonprofits who also steward historic buildings. The easiest example in most communities is your historical society. Either they own or the town owns, or they both own, but they don't know who's actually responsible for the building. And so connecting them with the resources, grant funds, technical assistance, and most importantly, the kind of preservation trades folks who actually do the work, which you know, is a challenge we've been facing across the country and trying to develop that workforce more. And so one of those resources, we have a small sub-grant program that supports nonprofits that are preserving or restoring historic buildings in their communities. And then at the state kind of higher level, we also offer, you know, webinars and opportunities to learn more about preservation, and then also advocate along with MDC and other partners for legislation at the state and federal level that supports historic preservation, including last year and hopefully, I guess this year actually, the expansion and creation of a historic homeowner tax credit in the state, and improving the small tax credit that would help target specifically these types of small to mid-sized commercial buildings in Maine. I could go on forever, but I also had to mention Jane's Walk. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah, Jane's Walk is amazing. Do you want us to talk about it, or you want me to?
Oh, you can go for it, Anne. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Jane's Walk, we are lucky in Maine that Tara Kelly, who's the director of Maine Preservation, oversaw Jane's Walk in New York City, one of the largest Jane Walks in the entire world. This is a worldwide celebration of Jane Jacobs, who talks about, she is no longer with us, but, you know, really kind of taking back the streets for people and place. And we do Jane's Walk in Maine we've done it for 3 years with Maine Preservation, Friends of Congress Square Park, Greater Portland Landmarks, and Portland Downtown. And it's an amazing statewide event. And you guys a lot of you have done it. Cara, you've had huge tours. So has Biddeford and Gardner, and it's a great program that we can chime into. And thanks, Brad, for that intro. A lot of you have had Maine Preservation in your communities visiting. Also, you know, Brad mentioned nonprofit, you know, museums and historical societies, but I would say downtown theaters, Brad, too. So many of you have those buildings. You're working on them. I mean, I think of Belfast, Amanda, you have so many of those community sites between Waterfall Arts, the theater, the church that's doing theater, you know, so much. So Maine Preservation is a great resource to visit. And their 1772 Foundation Grant Program that Brad mentioned. I looked at the list of awardees from this last round, and many of our downtowns communities did receive funding. So it's a great program. So Megan, would you like to talk a little bit about kind of your role? Maine Historic Preservation Commission is a very important partner to the Maine Downtown Center because they are our partner in getting the National Park Service preservation funding that we have been awarded successfully twice through, again, Department of Interior National. We've gotten twice the biggest award in the country, and we have a third application pending. I don't know whether we'll get it a third time or not. So Megan does a lot of things individually, but her organization is very important. Whereas Brad is a nonprofit, Megan is state government and has a lot of mandate from our federal partners as well. But Megan, I'll turn it over to you.
So yeah, our office is we are funded by the National Park Service in part. So, but we are responsible for overseeing a multiple different program areas such as National Register nominations, architectural surveys that can, maybe identify a district or certain historic buildings in your towns to be eligible for the listing in the National Register, and then you can take it through the process. I won't go into the weeds, but then we have the tax credit program that we oversee for those rehabilitation tax credit program for state and federal. We have archaeology in our office. Our archaeologists do go out and do some digs from time to time in different municipalities. I'm trying to think what else we have. I do the review and compliance for our federally funded programs, such as I work with Terry Ann all the time for the facade grant improvement projects and USDA rural development for those funded projects as well, and DOT. So all of our federal partners. And then we do have grant programs through our office as well. We do two types of grants through our office, the HP Historic Preservation Fund grants, and then there's a grant out there available to certified local governments that have these, or certified local government as a municipality that has a historic preservation ordinance on the books that meets our state standards and guidelines and goes through a process and is certified by the National Park Service. So we have all these different programs that play a part, and if you ever have any questions about them, feel free to contact our office and I can try to point you in the right direction.
Which is great that Megan helps us play that role. And the only thing I'm thinking of, Megan, is that in addition to buildings, right? You mentioned archaeology. I also think of, historic bridges, historic landscapes, and monuments, right? So you may have other things in your communities that you're like, oh, we don't know anything about that. And you need to think about historic preservation beyond just a building. And like we said, districts, and many of our downtowns have historic districts nationally designated. And then, as Megan alluded to, certified local governments are local districts with their own local ordinances. And I'm trying to think who's on board that has one. Biddeford, Gardner. Anybody else that is on right now? Not Belfast, right?
Ellsworth does have an ordinance, but they are not certified yet.
Okay, great. So, and being certified as like a certified local government, is in the standards, right? Like that's a pretty high achieving, wonderful protection for those resources. And that protection really does come at the local level. So, Terry Ann, since you just put yourself on camera, I just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything to add to this conversation.
And I called her out.
You called her out, right?
Yeah, we really rely on Megan's help for our CDBG program. Everything that we do has to go through a Section 106 review, and she has been absolutely fantastic about helping to shepherd things along and give us ideas and tips and help when we need it. So I really appreciate all of Megan's work and her putting up with my being a pest sometimes.
That's great. Thanks, Terry Ann. And just a couple of reminders, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant. If anybody wasn't familiar with that, that's a really important program that Terry Ann, her office oversees. And there is specific downtown funding. There's a facade program. They're amazing programs. And for downtown funds, Main Streets get 2 extra bonus points and affiliates get 1. So talk to your municipality if you're a qualified community and can apply for those funds, or talk to Terry Ann, right?
I just popped the link in the chat there for the
thanks.
CDBG program. Yeah, and I wondered if you wanted to just like high level highlight the fact that we included the DEI section in this preservation toolkit very intentionally, because often kind of the cultural preservation and historic preservation can feel at odds, and we tried to there was rich discussions with our group about that.
That's really true. And feel free to keep going. You're on a roll with it. I will put the page up while Sylvie's talking, because it really was an area that we thought long and hard about. And I'll just give it the context of sometimes, you know, there's this feeling that preservation isn't for everybody. And I think it's really important to just say, no, it can be for everybody. And there are communities that are trying to figure out ways when they have local ordinances, how sort of all people can, you know, own a historic building and take care of it. It doesn't have to be, there are tools that some communities are putting in place, like funding at the local level. And Megan, you might know of examples, so that the municipality can support someone who economically couldn't afford, you know, the right materials for good preservation practices. You're thinking, Megan, so feel free to take yourself off mute. And yeah.
So the only program that I can think that we do have on the books that it's not really used that much is a like local tax. It's almost like a tax incentive tax break for maintaining your historic property. The only municipality that does currently use it, but they're revamping it, is York. But that has been on the books for quite some time now, and not a lot of people have taken advantage of it. But York is currently trying to figure out how to revamp that program to make it more lucrative for homeowners.
Great. And I think that the example of a local municipality starting a fund that would help make it possible for people to make historic preservation improvements isn't happening in Maine yet, but I have seen some examples nationally. So it's just an area thinking about equity. Sorry, Sylvie, I totally took the airtime on that.
No, that's great. That's excellent. I think it is just, you know, thinking about what are the stories here that are, you know, not represented, and maybe how to complement those alongside preserving the buildings and the spaces that have been preserved, or are a little more visible, but then also looking kind of at the less visible stories of the people and different cultures that make up a place.
I just want to chime in on that.
Yeah,
kind of interesting. Kirk and I had this discussion yesterday, and I forget who we were on who we were talking to, but he did bring up that whole, like, when you get into National Register nominations, one of the things is integrity, and one of those aspects is association. So we were discussing how there might be a building out there that's covered in vinyl, has replacement windows, but there's an association with a group or an underrepresented type or peoples that tells a story, but it might not necessarily be seen through the workmanship and materials of the building. So you really, you know, don't discount those buildings from possibly being a historic building in your municipalities.
Thanks for that, Megan. That's fascinating. That's great that you and Kirk are having this conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Brad, do you have anything to add from Maine Preservation on some of these undertold stories and preservation being, I don't know, changing its lens a little bit?
Yeah, I guess two things that go together. Jane's Walk is a great opportunity to hear what other folks want to share, like within their tour or the walk that they join, about what they think a place is and means to them. And then also, you know, reminding folks that generally in the preservation role, we think about historic as 50 years old, and that's 1974. And so more recent histories, even if it's 5 years ago, if that's something important to your community, that can be part of what you're trying to keep around and preserve and celebrate. It doesn't need to be something that happened at the founding of your town.
That's great.
And I just popped the link to Jane's Walk in the chat in case you're not familiar. It's a great low barrier way for communities to participate. Telling your story.
It didn't come up yet for me, Sylvie.
Oh, that's because it went to Tamara directly.
Oh, Tamara got it. Thanks.
I don't know how that happened.
Does anybody have questions for Megan or Brad about things that, at this point? Tamara?
I have two. Hopefully they're both very quick. One is, and pardon me if this is a very elementary question, but the toolkit and everything, is that something that can be shared with actual property owners, or where would we send property owners to be looking for historic tax credits?
Yeah, I will say that the toolkit is really meant for the community, I would say, and for the main streets and the affiliates and the downtown leaders, just to think about preservation really big and what things you can do. Like May is National Preservation Month. There's some great ideas in the toolkit of simple, low barrier things that an all volunteer organization could do to highlight Preservation Month, right? There's things like that. So I think it's more community oriented. And as far as tax credits, Brad and Megan, I don't know if you want to chime in. They both have places on their websites and people in their offices that can talk to you about tax credits. Megan has an entire staff person devoted to tax credits, Mike Johnson. And Brad, how does it work in your office?
Yeah, and I think we both field inquiries to to both of our organizations, and then we cross-pollinate as needed to see where that person should go first. Yeah.
Right. And often, Tamara, I mean, a lot of the Main Street directors send someone to me, and then I kind of push it out to Megan or Brad, depending upon where the person is in the process and what kind of information they have or need, right? They might not even know if their property's eligible or listed on the register. So there I go to Megan. Megan, what do you know about 575 Water Street? She'd be like, okay, it's eligible. And then we kind of go to the next step and I hand them off. So I think all three of us could be helpful with property owners or developers either.
I just wanted to have information to make it more expedient for them, but maybe I can't, I don't know. But just send them to the right place because they often know even less. So and my second question is, I love the idea of it sounds like a place could be historic, under historic preservation. So I'm going to use the example of the oyster middens, because that's indigenous culture. Is that so locally, I would think about the confluence of Cobbossee Stream and Kennebec River, and everybody's going to get sick of me talking about that. But so if it's a place that was of indigenous importance, could that be considered?
So that's where I would send you to the archaeology, wing of Maine Historic Preservation Commission. Or if I wasn't clear exactly, I'd be like, Megan, will you start with this? Because I think it's below the ground. So that's where I go.
So we have two different archaeologists on staff. I'll just put that out there. There's Dr. Arthur Spees, who is the prehistoric, indigenous. He has been with our office for a very, very long time. Shell middens are very near and dear to his heart. So he could probably give you all the information that you possibly could need about, that confluence. And then we have a historic archaeologist on our staff as well that does the post contact. So when Europeans finally came to settle on that contact right there, his name is Dr. Leith Smith. I know that when DOT was doing the bridge replacement project by the A1, that they were very interested in the various dam remains and mill remains in that area. So you kind of get the best of both worlds because they're both very specific to their time periods, but they are very, very knowledgeable. So
thank you.
And we've got
I was going to
say
say,
we've got a question from Ross and then Cara, but Anne, you first.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say Ross and then Cara,
great.
and then quick wrap to our next topic. Ross.
Sorry, so this feels really fortuitous. I actually got a phone call yesterday from a homeowner, not in a downtown district, none of that, just saying, hey, I've got an old house of 250 years, I believe. Is there any money out there for helping me restore this house? And I sort of said, I sort of threw out things like call the Maine Historical Society, or, I didn't really know what I was saying. So I bluffed him to some degree, but I did sort of say, I don't have any money for that kind of thing. So now I'm going to reach out to him again on Monday with some contact information for you guys, which is great. But are there any funds out there for that? They're not economic. It's not a business. It's some guy's house. It's not in the downtown district, but it still has got its own intrinsic value to it. Is there any funding out there for that kind of thing to help those folks out, other than tax credits? Sorry,
Brad, go ahead.
Not specific to preservation. So if you went into home improvement in CDBG world, that potential depending on that socioeconomic status of the homeowner. That's why we're trying to create that historic homeowner tax credit here in Maine, which was through LD 1810. It passed the legislation, but was not funded this past session. And there are 25 other states in the country that have this homeowner tax credit. And so that's really the only tool. Once we pass that, I'm kind of setting that intention that it will exist hopefully next year. And then that'll be a great tool to help with exterior repairs and weatherization of historic homes, because it's desperately needed. It's silly that we ask people to preserve homes, but don't provide them any resources to do such.
Brad, are you ever, isn't it possible for a homeowner to, and it may be a fee for service, have Maine Preservation come and do a site visit and kind of priorities of, I don't know, improvements of a residential, or am I making that up? Or is that a Greater Portland Landmarks service?
We always are happy to do a first call, and then if it's warranted, a first visit for free. So that's always a service that we're happy to offer, and then we can talk about. We're always happy to provide feedback and answer emails and phone calls from the same owner. So we're here to help.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Brad. Cara, did you have a question, or was it the information you put in the chat, which is great?
Well, I just want to plug this federal opportunity. I know it's for 10,000 residents or less, for towns of 10,000 residents or less, but I just can't say enough about receiving that money to be able to run a program that we ran earlier this year. And if anyone is interested, I'm happy to share our grant proposal.
Yeah, it was an amazing program. Maine Preservation was involved, probably the commission too. I mean, all these different educational sessions that Heart of Ellsworth brought to the city of Ellsworth for the community and property owners. It was really thorough and amazing, Cara, both what you delivered, obviously, and your successful proposal. Yeah, great.
Cara, I'll include your contact along with that link if that's okay, since you're offering to share that application. That's great.
Thanks.
And the last piece I just want to mention that I think Bill King would love to add to the conversation. He had that great article he loved to reference about the kind of economic impact of preservation, because that's often a barrier for folks as well. It costs more and it's cheaper if we just, tear it down. And that's not necessarily the case if you look at a bigger picture. So I'm going to put that link in the chat, and we don't have time to talk about it anymore because we have a short presentation from Patrick, but it's a great conversation starter, or a way to kind of engage in conversation when folks have that hurdle or barrier to considering preservation.
Great.
And
so
yeah.
Lastly, just when you're thinking about 2025 and your work plans and things that your organizations or your communities can do, whether it's to meet accreditation standards, whether it's to provide more protection with a certified local government, or it's like, we just want to do one little thing for Preservation Month. Take a look at the toolkit and use it, and let us know if you have questions. And that is that section. So Brad and Megan, you guys are free to go. You're welcome to stay. but I don't want to hold you up from getting on with your Friday.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for
Thanks,
joining
Megan.
us.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thanks, Brad.
And Patrick, you're up. I maybe was too strong when I said presentation, but Patrick's gonna share about his experience with a leadership training that we were able to help partially fund in scholarship, which is something that's available to all of our members and staff or volunteers with our member communities. If you have learning opportunity that or kind of content need that we are not offering, and you find something, you can always contact me or Ann about the opportunities for some support with scholarship funding. So Patrick, we'd love to hear what you learned.
Yeah, thank you. So that's not so much a presentation, but more of just an overview of what we did. So thank you for the scholarship. Definitely appreciate that. So I went through the Visionary Leadership Program hosted by the Maine Center for Entrepreneurs. If you're not familiar with them, they're based out of Portland. They have a ton of great programming, especially for entrepreneurial efforts. Their most popular program and longest running is Top Gun. I'm sure many of you have probably heard about that. So, but this is a newer one, and the group that I was specifically with, it was meant for food and like biomedicine. Most of us were coming from the food space, and I work in Main Street, but we're working on creating a shared use commercial kitchen called the Kitchen at 185. And with that, we're going to be hiring a few more people to help out. And I wanted to take a course to try to hone some leadership skills. I've been a little out of practice, I feel like, but I had quite a bit of leadership experience from being in the Air Force. But yeah, so the course itself ran from January through June. It was a total of 9 sessions, most of those being online, but the first and the last session were in person. And we covered a variety of different topics, such as, DEI, mission building, building culture, and every session hosted by a presenter that specializes in that specific topic. We had speakers from Bangor Savings and individual companies, coaches, advisors, things like that. And they were all fantastic. And it really gave a nice overview of leadership from different perspectives, not only as, being a leader, but how to encourage those that might work for you to kind of step up. And, this could be a great program for any one of you, for any employees you might have, or just entrepreneurs that you know of within your towns. And so, it's, yeah, so, but while the sessions were fantastic, I think everyone here is probably, we've all been part of conferences and, maybe some cohort-based programs, but, I'd say the biggest takeaway is really those connections that you get to build with the folks that you go through it with. I met some fantastic people, and I'd say that's really the biggest takeaway from this. Just there's amazing work going on in the state from these entrepreneurs. They were all entrepreneurs. I was the only one not running a business in the class. And so what was really impactful, I thought, through the course was after every session, they would randomly assign us to pair up and discuss as homework, what we really took away from the class. But oftentimes it ended up just us talking about the work that we're doing, problems and challenges we're facing. A lot of, everyone's familiar with the workforce challenges that are going on. You have childcare and, housing, and all of this is affecting employers. So it was interesting to hear their takes and kind of, from my perspective, as someone who directly works with entrepreneurs and trying to hear those experiences and learn from them and maybe try to apply that to the folks that I directly work with. So that was really cool. They also offered some really great resources throughout the class. If you like to read, I would definitely recommend The Culture Code. That was actually a book provided by the program. Really great information. And then another resource that I feel is probably one of the best like trait assessments that I've come across is the Gallup Clifton Strengths online assessment. And it focuses on figuring out what your strengths really are. Now it does cost some money, but the simplest version, it provides your 5 top strengths. The full version is 34 strengths. So that's been great. And I refer to that all the time to help me realize, okay, what am I actually good at? And how can I apply that to the work that I do every day? So really good resources. Again, fantastic program, fantastic folks that put it on. So yeah, that's my brief overview.
That's perfect. Thanks so much, Patrick. Can you say the name of that strengths assessment again? Was it Gallup?
Yes, it's from Gallup. It's the Clifton Strengths Assessment.
Actually,
Yeah.
Sylvie, MDF staff has done that in the past. We just
Awesome.
haven't done it updated since you've been here. And it is a very good, self-reflection in it.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll include that in the wrap-up notes along with the book you mentioned, actually. And you seem to know that book as well. What was that?
Culture Code. Yeah.
Culture Code. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tamara, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, I believe there's different versions of the Clifton. There's regular one and then there's leadership.
Yes, I think you're right. And I just want to let everybody know that again, like Sylvie said, you guys can say, oh, there's this really cool class on, placemaking or something that maybe we don't offer. And you are like, I don't have it in my budget, or I have no budget. I mean, we've helped organizations, go to a grant writing class. I mean, I don't cover it all. It's a like shared thing, when we figure it out. But just don't hesitate to ask. I have a small budget. And then the other thing I budget for every year is having a downtown representative participate in the Institute for Civic Leadership or Leadership Maine. Those are 2 signature leadership programs that MDF offers. And I was a participant in ICL last year. Ross is a Leadership Maine alum and ICL. No,
not ICL, but I'm thinking
Maine.
About it.
Yeah.
But great. Leadership Maine is a great program. I highly recommend it to everybody on this team.
Yeah. And I literally, the tuition is, not small, but like I'll put $1,000 for one of our downtown people towards that tuition. And then, we can help. We have other scholarships too at MDF broadly. So those are amazing programs that run, typically like September to April. Leadership Maine might be at September to May. Nancy, I forget, did you go through one of those programs? No. Okay.
No, years ago, I went through a leadership heuristic one, but not the Leadership Maine.
Yeah. So they're amazing programs. I loved my experience at ICL. So if you're thinking about training, whether it's leadership or something else, and you want to figure out a way to do it, reach out. You have requirements like having to make a little presentation like Patrick did and having to write a brief summary of what you're going to learn and why it's going to benefit Skowhegan. So Patrick, we look forward to hearing more from you as you, keep diving into this role in Skowhegan and how it's going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Great.
Great. All right. So I don't know if we want to jump into kind of some of our poll and then a couple resources, or open it up for general.
I'm going to do the placer questions really quickly.
Good.
All right. How many of you just like put some emoji in your thing or give me a thumbs up or something, have used Placer AI? I'll just put it that way. Only one? Wow. Okay.
Ross, I saw you on the Booms Tracker, the MSA Booms Tracker, so I'm not surprised about
that. Okay. How many of you even know what Placer AI is? Let's start there. Okay. People generally have an idea what it is. Okay. How many of you want to use it? Anybody? Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
4. Yeah.
That number should be higher.
But here's the issue. This is the killer question. Yeah. How many of you would pay $6,000 for a year of getting to use this tool? I know. This is what I told them.
Yeah.
These are the salespeople calling me, right?
Yeah.
It feels like a really big barrier, doesn't it?
It does. Can I pipe up here, Ann?
Yeah.
So I can't tell you who it is, but I have a nearby community that purchased it. And they are kind enough to occasionally run a report for me, which is fantastic. It's great networking, and I love their support. They don't do it very often, but I find it extremely valuable. One of the problems I think I'm having is that their team doesn't necessarily know how to run all the variables. So this report will tell you how many cell phones were in a footprint. It also will tell you where those cell phones came from, prior, where they live, where they came from just before the event, where they went after the event. I mean, the detail is incredible if you know how to use the system correctly. And I don't think these guys fully get it yet, which is fine. But I also just found out about it. I've not set up the meeting yet. There's a nonprofit version of this kind of software that is worlds cheaper. And I'm setting up, I've had a couple emails, but we're setting up a demo, and I don't have the name of it with me in front of me, but it is an alternative to Placer AI that does a very similar thing, and it's a third or a quarter of the price. So when I get more information, I'll share that with the group for sure. But I find this to be we did a demo a couple of years ago with Placer AI, and that's what we decided not to do it because of the price tag. You're absolutely correct. But we had them check the date of our blues festival, and the blues folks said they sold roughly 2,200 tickets, and cell phones came out to about 2,300 people. And it was, I mean, it was that close. And I was stunned at the accuracy that I think the system comes up with.
That's
Could
great.
you share that alternative with us when you think of it?
I absolutely will. I think I'm going to meet with them in the next week or two.
Cool. Nancy.
Yeah, I saw something on Main Street America that looked like they have the service and could do things for us. And I reached out after I saw it. I reached out to whoever it was. Never heard back from them, but because we were interested in getting that information for the eclipse. Main Office of Tourism did some great studies, but it was more about percentage increase in sales, percentage increase in participation. I'd like to see, how many people were here. Or,
And you can, Ross, look back retroactively, right? Of course. Like you could still get that data.
Oh yeah, Nancy. No, I think you can go back a couple years. I'm not positive. I know that they have to, it has to be a week from the event, so you have to wait a week after the event happens to get the data, because it takes a few days of processing. But I don't think there's a limit on how far back you can go, but I'm not positive.
So we thought about contacting them for like a free demo and using that as the
that's exactly what you do. That's what you do, Nancy. Augusta has done that a number of times. They have, Michael Hall said he did like demos and got interesting data. So anyway, I'll keep researching, but I told them, I was like, yeah, no, that $6,000 discounted rate. I was like, what are you, crazy? So, okay. That's it on that for the moment. Sylvie, back to you.
Great. Well, and we have a quick reminder. Really, it's only for oh no, actually both Gardner and Belfast who are here, I think are our main streets. Reporting. Oh yeah, and Biddeford, thank you. Reporting is due end of the month for the January through June annual reinvestment statistics. So I'll put that link in the chat, and you've received it by email, but just a friendly reminder. And then Andy also wanted to do kind of a survey of some wins that folks have had with MOC.
Okay. DOT. Thank you. Anybody have any wins of your downtown organization working with Maine Department of Transportation, whether it's a project or something that the downtown needed or the community needed, and you worked with them and have like a positive case study?
You only want positive?
I do. I have my reasons.
I've had them redoing my Main Street for 2.5 years. So there probably are some positives to come from that process, but there's also a balance.
I was like, Ross, I know that project. I feel like, I don't know that there's maybe in time you will reflect on the positive.
Yeah, I am also working on a potential village partnership initiative down at the main intersection, because I've had some luck working with DOT in the RUAC process, changing a rail line to a trail. We're going through that now, and also this cleaning up some old rail lines and making an intersection safer.
I like the rail trail potential project that
Yep.
that would be a very positive project. Any other positive projects?
So Gardner,
Melissa?
we're just on the
Mention.
planning side of things at this.
Yeah.
point, But we do have downtown sidewalks planning money right now.
Okay.
We're working with DOT. I feel like they've been responsive to our requests. Who knows what will be the final result? And they also, I think they really want to make Gardner as like an example. They're hoping to work with us on earmarks or whatever to get funding to implement it. So it's
Oh,
helping us move it along. I think, you know, it's a give and take with them, but so far it's hasn't been too bad. Most of the resistance has been between the committee and the locals on priorities of parking versus parks and access.
interesting. And I would say Gardner has had a high percentage of major construction that I feel like is like really disruptive and painful. So the fact that they're willing to help with earmarks,
Yeah.
smart move on their part. Chantel.
We just had this isn't related to the downtown committee, it's just the town of Monson, but we just had our village meeting.
Oh, good.
The village redevelopment meeting on Tuesday. So it was a second revision after the first meeting, had a lot of critique. We're still in that planning stage. We have no money earmarked. But if we're really hoping that we can do some of what they've designed, because it would make our downtown much more walkable. Which is interesting because it's only a mile long, but it isn't very walkable.
So you guys are in the village partnership program, I think, right? And you're in the planning phase of that DOT program. Is that right?
Yeah, they visited us, I think, 3 times and have gone through.
So far it's a positive process.
So far, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we have a grant from DOT for downtown sidewalks that's taken forever, but you know, everyone's lovely to work with.
Okay.
We got the grant in 2017.
Oh my.
They're in ROW right now.
Okay. Jeez.
We're hoping next year they'll actually be building sidewalks.
Well, I appreciate that. This is actually stories that are going to national for federal advocacy. They are working on various advocacy efforts with the federal DOT and things happening at the state level. And when you're pushing for something, you also need to be able to say, and we love you for these reasons. So that's kind of what I'm fishing for. Thank you. Sylvie, back to you. And thanks, Tamara, for the chat.
Oh, great. I think we've done it all. So what do you all have? Any questions from the preservation discussion, from the leadership discussion, anything's mentioned here, or anything that has not been mentioned that you just wanted to either survey the group or ask of your peers?
You got to come to Lisbon and get your Moxie on this weekend. We've got all sorts of good drinks and music, and it's a hootenanny from today at 4 until Sunday night at 8. Come on up.
Thanks, Ross.
Awesome.
Anybody else have anything they want to throw out in the last 5 minutes? It's kind of a speed dating. Yeah, Tamara.
Taking Ross's lead, Gardner Waterfront is hosting the main ritual market with 70 plus vendors on Sunday from 10 to 4.
Oh.
So come on by and make sure I haven't gotten heat stroke.
Yeah. We don't want that to happen.
Since this is a monthly meeting, I'll say that we also have the Reggae Festival on August 3rd right here in Lisbon Falls on the waterfront. So if you're a fan of reggae, we have bands coming from Jamaica to play at this thing. So it's going to be a big party. So come on.
That's great. And we hopefully will meet Emily Rotundo, who is Lisbon's downtown organization called Vision. Discover Lisbon. Emily Rotundo is the former economic development director in Bath, and she's a part-time downtown director that Ross and his council are using TIF money to pay for her to do that work. So hopefully we'll meet her coming in. Another kind of creative funding source. Okay, so I'm happy to hang out for a few minutes, Sylvie too, to answer questions, but otherwise head on your way. Have a good Friday, everybody, and a weekend, and let us know what you need. Chantel, I know we're coming to Monson this fall.
And
Great.
I'll include a bunch of links of everything that was mentioned in the wrap-up email, as well as the chat and recording.
Chantel, were you going to say something? No. Oh,
Just
yes.
looking forward to having you guys here.
Awesome.
You're kind. Great.
I have a question for you.
Oh, go
ladies.
ahead.
Denise. Yeah.
Go ahead, Denise.
It's, you know, it's just more about Callis, not generally question. The historic, the main preservation, and you guys know the situation up here in Callis and what I've been researching and trying to find. Do you think that's a good resource for me to reach out to for any funding or grants? Because I'm hitting like zeros everywhere I'm turning.
Do you know what specifically you're trying to do, Denise? Sylvie may know, because I know you guys have talked. I'm going to just stop the recording, Sylvie, too.
Oh, good idea. Specific to facades. That's what I'd reached out and sent you information from Terry Ann here,
Yep.
who's on the call as well.
I got that.
Yeah, but specific to facades.
Yeah, so the public service or economic development, the economic development, as she typed, it looks like it's more for expanding and hiring within a specific business. And then the public service, I will look a little further into that, but our